You know, you hear all this talk about how are we doing as a nation in education compared to China or Japan or this or that country. And those are probably, those are real good questions, and there's a lot of push in various levels of education for sort of a national focus. But the boards of education remind us education is also really local. You know, the choices that we're making about budgets and curriculums and schools have a huge impact on families. And Americans have spoken very squarely. They want a good measure of local control over that. So you end up with a Board of Education that in some ways looks upward to the state and the federal government and the rules we have to follow, but very much has its feet on the ground locally. What do local people expect? What do we want? Everybody wants to be successful. The arguments aren't so much do we want to succeed or not. The arguments are really how do we succeed? So the how question is probably what boards really wrestle with. A real difference in vision about, well, do we do this or do we do that? We all want to succeed, but there are many possible paths to that. We're the smallest school system in the state of Maryland. We have about 2,200 students. Let's compare that to the biggest, Montgomery County. I think this year had 142,000 students. To some extent, that means that whatever Montgomery County does may not be relevant to us. Their test scores, their foreign language programs, their policies on this or that may not have a lot to teach us. By contrast, Somerset County, Dorchester County, Queen Anne's County, Caroline County, Worcester County, Garrett County, and Allegheny County out west, those are other small counties. And actually, if you do a map of Maryland, you can see there's a central core that's got high populations, lots of students, and consequently big budgets, lots of people. And then on the fringe of Maryland, there's all these relatively unpopulated rural counties, and that's the group that I'm very interested in comparing us to. So when I ran for the school board, one of the things that I'm very interested in is how are we doing compared to those other school systems? And not just how are we doing test scores. Test scores are fine to look at, but they're only one piece of the puzzle. How are we doing in terms of how much we pay teachers, the kind of people we hire, our curriculum, what we do in terms of foreign languages, what we do in terms of all the stuff that isn't measured by tests, specials, art, music, things like that. And I think once you have that frame of mind, I actually call the 9 small rural counties, I call them the nimble 9. The premise is, since they're smaller, of course there are disadvantages, but you could also in theory change them more quickly. And I guess one of the reasons that I was so focused on trying to figure out the right comparison group, one thing I had found over the years, if you started a conversation with someone about, hey, here's something we could try to do in Kent County, invariably people would say, whether in the school system or out, but we're so small. So that was often a conversation stopper, or really more to the point, an idea stopper. The we're so small syndrome started to strike me as a real problem for going forward, because it kind of meant that whatever idea one came up with isn't going to work here. So I'm not that interested in what does Anne Arundel County or Baltimore County do that's innovative. What does Queen Anne's County do that's innovative? What cool things in terms of the environment and education are happening in Garrett County? Those are the places I look. So now we compare ourselves to other small school systems, and I think that's the right thing to be doing. The heart of an organization is its people, and you want to be careful when you disrupt that. And I mean, that's funny to say because we've just spent the last year making a major disruption in terms of consolidation. It's going to have a big impact on the system. Yeah. Certainly not ideal. You don't want to go into those things lightly. But I will say consolidation is probably going to protect jobs. Every dollar we save on a building is a dollar more to spend on people. I think a lot of people looking at the numbers would probably say, what took you guys in Kent County so long to make this obvious change? And I guess part of the answer is a tremendous concern for people. I mean, really the heart of an American community is the school. And one thing I'm extremely thankful for in all of this wave of consolidation is that there's no community that had a school that's not going to have a school. Rock Hall goes from 2 schools to 1, but boy, that school's never going away. I mean, we would never leave Rock Hall without a school. And we've been able to put 5th grade back in the elementary school. So Rock Hall at the end of the day loses grades 6, 7, and 8. Because we had really, I think, any responsible steward of finances and learning and how students are doing on really important areas. It made too much sense to bring some of those things together. So Rock Hall lost 3 grades. Galena lost 3 grades, but Galena gained an elementary school, which I think is great for a community, right? So much went into this decision. For one thing, consolidation is important enough that there are explicit Maryland laws. governing what you have to look at. You have to take account of local communities. You have to take account of demographics and demographic trends. You have to take account of race and class and income distribution around the county. There's a bunch. You have to look at the condition of your buildings. You have to look at building usage. So at the state level, what we call COMAR, the Code of Maryland as it relates to education law, kind of gives you a pretty good list. If you're going to start thinking about changing your building deployment, these are the things you have to look at. In a slightly different world, we would keep our administrative offices in Chestertown, close to the county commissioners, more centrally located to all the towns. But that building is a huge problem. When they did an energy audit of it a couple of years ago, they found that it cost $70,000 a year just for the HVAC for that building. It's been a lot of deferred maintenance on the building. There's serious leaks in the roof. There are some buried gas tanks that have not been maintained, because I think for a while people have been thinking we're on our last years in that building. To really maintain it would take a serious commitment of resources. It's got asbestos problems. So if you start getting into renovating it, you've got abatement issues. It would have been great to be able to maintain that. But a school, when you're hustling dollars to pay people or pay for materials for the classroom, sometimes you don't have the luxury of historic preservation. It's a really important function for a town and for a county, may not be the right function for a school system. Right? So it seemed too evident that that building was not sustainable, given the deferred maintenance issues, given the ongoing expenses of it, and given, frankly, a big building for not that big a staff of central administrators. Probably the worst day for me recently was when I found out a couple weeks ago that the high school principal was leaving after a year. That's just terrible. And for me, the deepest regret was that I didn't find out until he had made up his mind. Because I refused to believe that he'd made up his mind, so I spent the next week trying to wheedle him into rethinking, and I just wish that I had an inkling beforehand that he had some concerns. Some of them were family concerns, and I totally get that, and I'm not sure that ultimately anything could have been done. But that was not good. That poor high school has had such a push me, pull you about it, that the students who'll be seniors this upcoming year will be their fourth principal. And that's no way to build stability. That's no way to build sort of a strong school. But by gum, you know, the principal, God bless him, I thought he was great. He's leaving Kent County. Guess what? We're not leaving Kent County. Well, all the rest of us are going to stay here and we're going to get it right.